Welcome back. I'm Mountain Jace. Hopefully you've all had a chance to watch the first 3 episodes in this expedition to your peak fitness. For those that haven't yet, let me quickly do a 360 of where we currently are. But before I do, here's my money back guarantee to you. You'll hear things on this channel that you won't find anywhere else, and that they will be immediately actionable, make a profound difference to the gains you get, and will not only deliver tangible physical benefits, but also build your personal sense of self-esteem along the way. And oh, I promise not to browbeat you by using too many fancy Latin names for the various parts of the body. This ain't no dive into the crusty world of academic textbooks. It's a real-world climb up real-world challenges to deliver real-world results. Let me just dwell on this penultimate point a while. Self-esteem is not something you demand from others. You don't have a right to it, and it's hard-won, yet easily forfeited. At its core, the fuel for growing one's self-esteem is nothing more miraculous than doing the right thing when in fact you had the option to merely take the easy way out. We can all pick up a piece of trash when other people are watching, but doing it in a secluded forest, when the only eyes that see are those without a voice, is quite another thing indeed. So, sure, you can keep on cheating yourself out of the performance gains you say you want, just because it's easier to remain wrong than admit failure and so create the genesis of change. In the long run, it makes no difference to me. But understand this. Now, thanks to these videos, you know better. So if you don't let go of the past negative habits and reach out for the chance to make a better you, then that will contribute to defining who you are in all aspects of your life. You will supply the chains that bind you to mediocrity. Where the self-esteem from breaking free from failure should have been, there will just be an empty void, save for a torn-up piece of paper on which is written in your own hand that when it came down to it, you weighed your self-worth and decided that continuing with the cheat option was all you really deserved. Anyway, time is precious, so let's jump straight in. In the last episode, I clearly laid out for you, using the 50-bulb staircase to heavenly gains example, that this is the only way to fully train a muscle so that the brain receives the vital illumination signals necessary to then send out the order to rebuild and strengthen those damaged muscle fibres. If you don't completely understand this systemic structure, then go back and watch episode 3 until it makes total logical sense to you. Remember, my goal on this channel is not to merely make you into a cult follower. Not only do we know how that ends, as with the Liver King debacle, where lies were packaged as dreams so that an inferior human being could manipulate others for financial gain into thinking he was some kind of demigod. No, what I want is for you all to become leaders in your own right, so that when, in the months and years ahead, you're working out in your gym and you see a person who looks as though they're misguided rather than just unworthy of making it to the fitness summit, you'll be able to cogently explain why they are needlessly throwing away 90% of the gains on offer to them, and also how to make the actionable changes required so that they can go on and earn the benefits of successful training. Anyway, as I was saying, the 50-bulb staircase is the only way to attain your maximum potential, and everyone's potential differs according to age, diet, genetics, whether they smoke or drink heavily, etc. That's just the lumpiness of life. What we want to do is give ourselves the best possible chance, so to speak, to shine brightly while those around us wallow in the darkness of stupidity. That's the fitness evolution this channel hopes to inspire. So, let's say you've understood and combined the foundations of fitness. So let's say you've understood and combined the foundations of fitness I've elucidated in this series of videos so far. That the body doesn't want you to train, it would rather bones took the strain than expensive to service muscles, and that to garner the most muscle fiber damage from each set you do, which is the central catalyst for growing fitter and stronger in the future, you must command your body not to pass the force of the weight being used into your skeleton, but keep it in the muscle at all times, i.e. the equivalent of stepping on each and every stair on the way up and doing the same thing on the way down for each repetition, often called the positive and negative elements of every exercise. Okay, one set is in the bag, but then what? Well, this takes us to yet another vitally important evolutionary change, one that, as you'll hear me say a multitude of times in the weeks ahead, if you ignore, believe you know better, or simply can't be bothered to adhere to, then that's the juncture at which you, no one else, choose to take the path leading down to failure rather than up to success. It's as simple as that. It remains your call. So, let me explain. A muscle is like an army. When it goes into battle, for example, gets used, the general in command, your brain, balances the chances of victory with the cost of victory. So, left to its own devices, the body would much prefer to only engage those soldiers directly on the front line, the first tier of combatants, so to say, thus leaving the rest of the muscle in reserve to either join the fray later or avoid sustaining further casualties altogether. To get deep, three-dimensional muscle growth, the kind that can deliver real-world strength gains, be it when you swim, play tennis, or ski down a black run, you have to actively override this preservation strategy. In the same way, when you're learning to play the piano, you have to instruct your fingers to move against what they think is normal. And the way you do that is, once you've picked your optimal weight, note this is a long way away from your maximum, but I'll say a lot more on this in a later episode, go on and illuminate as many engaged muscle fiber lights as possible. You must then limit the time gaps between sets to the absolute bare minimum. That is to say, you must start your next set while your muscle is still screaming from the last, and certainly before the body is able to make temporary repairs to the injured frontline soldiers. When you do this, because your brain sees that the lead battalion is out of action, it will send instructions to call up the next company of combatants to engage with the enemy, i.e., in our case, battle the force of gravity or elasticity. It is infinitely better in terms of achieving performance gains to destroy the first wave of muscle fibers and then do the same to the second and third than to repeatedly break only one layer thereof. If something is broken, it's broken. In time it will be repaired. However, if you obliterate it, there probably won't be enough time, unless you're juicing up, which I definitely don't encourage, to get back to 100% status before you next work out on this particular muscle, resulting in you actually getting weaker and smaller because you've put yourself in a constant state of debilitation, as long-distance runners do, even though they may eat more than 5,000 calories a day. Again, let me repeat, if you want to get stronger and build more usable muscle that looks great, you have to injure not just the first level of fibers, but those below and then those below these. Your body will try to stop this happening. In bygone times, when foodstuff was scarce, it made little sense to have a default position of always engaging every muscle fiber in a fight from the very beginning. The only way to do this, and it becomes easier and easier as you augment your fitness levels, is to allow only a few tens of seconds between sets, which, horror of horrors, means there's no time to pick up and play with your phone. If that's a price too high to pay for you, then might I suggest you cancel your gym membership and use the money saved to buy your Lord and Master a new screen protector or perhaps a data plan upgrade, because you'll be wasting your time trying to get fit. Those things that are most precious in your life require effort, sacrifice, and commitment, and certainly not being placed second to checking your WhatsApp messages. But for those of you on their way to peak fitness and great self-esteem, there's no other route up than making sure you hit the muscle whilst it is still recalling from the last attack. Of course, to do so effectively, you'll need to create a battlefield scenario on which you can be victorious. So, before I go and get that video ready for you, might I ask, if you have found the contents of this one to be a revelation in your goal to reach the absolute heights in your fitness potential, then please return the kindness and hit the like and subscribe icons. That way, together, we'll become a team strong enough to reach any of life's mountain peaks. See you on the next Mountain Jace's climb to peak fitness.